In batteries, it acts as a corrosion inhibitor, so essentially it makes the car batteries last longer than they would normally. In briquetting, it's used as a glue to hold together things like limestone powder or gypsum powder, make it into granules, and then those are used for fertilizer. And then as a soil conditioner, it's an organic product. And as such, when you apply it into fields and onto plants, it actually stimulates the soil and improves the soil structure. And that helps plants grow. So I'm going to jump into what I think are some of the key differentiators of our product versus cement or bitumen when it's used for full depth reclamation. And the key part here is that when you look at environmental health and safety, our products are non-toxic, they contain no dioxins, and the trace minerals are below EPA limits. It's not harmful to aquatic species. It's not harmful to terrestrial species. It's not a skin irritant, so it's not harmful to humans. It's classified as not classified as dangerous according to the Global Harmonized System, which is your safety data sheets nowadays. And it's REACH exempt, which is a European designation, but it's well known here in the US as well. I'll take a little bit of a moment to say that there's going to be a packet of information that will be included or available after this presentation. And some of that information will include more details related to this environmental health and safety. So you'll have more details as to what the limits are in these particular tests. Then the other unique aspect of our product is we deem it a sustainable product. And when we talk sustainability at Beauregard, we talk about 3 Ps. We talk about the product, we talk about production, and we talk about people. And in terms of product, of course, you want a product that is renewable and sustainable. And as I showed earlier with that biorefinery concept, we're taking biomass, wood, and we're using that for our products. That's very sustainable. And further, 92% of the raw materials we use are produced in a sustainable manner as well, and they're certified as such. So the forests are harvested and planted in a sustainable way. Then when you talk about sustainability, another thing comes up called life cycle analysis. And what that means is you take the product and you take it from the beginning to the end, you know, how it's made until how it's used and everything in between, and you evaluate the impacts that product has on the environment. Then you compare that to other alternatives that could be used. And then you match them up and you see what's more sustainable than others. And our product is positive in a lot of these life cycle analyses. I will have more data on that coming up here shortly. In terms of production, you know, not only do you want a sustainable product, but you want to produce it in the most sustainable way you can. So we reduce our CO2 emissions, we reduce our energy to produce the same amount of material, and reduce our SO2 emissions. So we're striving to produce the product as sustainable as possible. And lastly, people. To be a sustainable business or proposition, you also have to be able to offer sustainable wages to your people and also offer a diverse workforce. There's one more P that I didn't put up here because it's a little more basic, I guess, and that's profit. To be sustainable as a company, you have to do all those things and still make money. And that's what we do at Beauregard. There's a sustainability report on our website. And the link is shown here, but I also have it in that available for that information packet after the presentation. To highlight some other aspects of sustainability, it's a bio-based material derived from wood. It's derived from the second most abundant biopolymer, and cellulose is the first. So it's very abundant, it's very available. It's derived from photosynthesis. So obviously you're pulling CO2 to make this product in the end. For every kilogram of lignin, which is Dustex, there's a 1.5 kilograms of CO2 pulled from the atmosphere. It's not derived from food sources, so we're not competing against the population for raw material. I mentioned the life cycle analysis early on. What we did is we got a consultant to do a life cycle analysis of our product as it's used in road-based stabilization and compared it to bitumen, which would be asphalt, and also cement. And the way we put this together is we also accounted for the dosage that would go into that process. When you do a life cycle analysis, you look at, in this case, looked at 5 different aspects. You looked at climate change, ozone layer depletion, photochemical oxidation, acidification, and eutrophication. Each of those have different units of measure. So to compare them accurately here, or in a chart like this, we basically benchmarked the worst case offender as 100%, and then relative to that, we rated the other 2 products. Does that make sense? Okay. So in climate change, cement was the worst offender. And you see that bitumen's not terrible, but lignin is far better. In ozone layer depletion, bitumen is the worst offender, and cement and lignin are pretty low. Photochemical oxidation, very similar result to the ozone layer depletion. Acidification, both the cement and bitumen are very high, and the lignin or Dustex is very low. And the only category where we come in high is eutrophication, and that relates to the fact that our product's organic, and as it breaks down, it'll actually take up some oxygen out of the atmosphere, so that's called eutrophication. Now that analysis is determined by taking the molecule of lignin all the way to the end of its life cycle. Really, when we're talking road construction, that's the life cycle of road is far less than the life cycle of our product, if that makes sense.
What is how long? How long do you think this lasts?
Our product?
Yes.
It will last, when maybe Lloyd can answer this too, but it'll last the life of the road.
Well,
so let's just say sorry?
I'm the gradient base engineer, so when I think of the life of the road, I'm thinking of 100 to 200 years. As far as the subgrade, anything below the bituminous.
Yeah.
Now, the topping, or what we call the topping, or the bituminous of concrete, that only lasts anywhere from 25, 30 years for bituminous if it's done well. And concrete's probably in the neighborhood of 35 to 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
So if years last that length, if years only last that length of time, then that's fine. But if it lasts more, then I can put on more than one set of bituminous original 100 or 200 years.
Yeah.
I can put several overlays.
Yeah. I don't have a clear answer for you on that.
Okay.
What I can say is that this has been used for 20 years at least, or 30 years in Norway, yep. And they're satisfied with the results there. If we want to evaluate it beyond that measure, we're willing to look into that. I mean, this is the front end of a new idea, and we have to do a lot of evaluation to know.
It would be nice to know if you had data on initial strength or whatever parameter you want with your product, or then what's the strength today after 20? Is there any drop off? Mm-hmm. Right? And if there's no appreciable drop off, then we can probably assume that it's going to last well beyond the 20 years or so that it's been. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Okay. There are ways to evaluate just your layer where it was installed. So something to think about it. If there's any quality weight deflectometer data, or right, Bruce? Anything else that would measure strength?
Yeah, like oxidize or stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, we're game on all that.
With anything like that, that'd be great. Or maybe this Mr. Killen.
Can address some of that too.
Yeah.
Yep.
They may have some data on that. Okay. Sorry
Sure.
to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. It's a good question. And I will show you a little bit of data that we use to. I'll show you a little bit of data on stabilization. It's not directly related to full depth reclamation, but it relates to stabilization and the data we use to kind of support this idea.
Okay.
Now, whether it's exactly what you're looking for, well, I also like to highlight the fact that it's a biopreferred product, according to the USDA biopreferred program. I don't know if that's a certification that's well known, but we will be doing the volunteer labeling process to get this symbol basically next to our product name, Dust-X. And then we do already have a special provision for full depth reclamation issued by MnDOT. Is that fair enough, Terry?
Yep.
Okay, now essentially that doesn't say that this is approved for use. It just says it's okay to evaluate.
Well, if you want, it more or less says that if you have a project where you're going to use Dust-X, we recommend as MnDOT you using our special provision. So you just don't make it up yourself. So we already have, you just use the special provision we have already, nothing more to make up.
Okay.
More or less, so.
All right, thanks. All right, so I first started out with our company and then how our product differentiates from bitumen and cement, which I believe is the sustainability, environmental side of things. So now I'm just going to tell you a little bit more what the product really is and then how and what brought us closer to today for this presentation. So essentially, this is what the molecule is. Not going to get too much into chemistry, but it's a highly branched product or molecule. It has a lot of hydrophobic groups, a lot of hydrophilic groups. It has charged, pH dependent charged densities, and also other charged areas that aren't dependent on pH. What that really means, though, is that there's a lot of unique functions that this product can do. And when you use it for road stabilization, you start out with your road base and all the particles intermixed into that. You put in Dust-X, and now it's intermixed with the road base, and it starts to coat those soil particles. And because of the unique properties of Dust-X, it lubricates it. And now you come in with a compaction process, and you flatten that material out, densifies it, and then once it's densified and begins to dry, now the Dust-X becomes a glue. It starts holding all that stuff together. So lubricates it, compacts it, glues it together. You end up with a stronger, better road structure. On a different level, if you look at the molecules, soil particle, the Dust-X coating it, and they're all bonding together. Basically, it's a chemical and physical binding action, and due to strong intramolecular forces and adhesive forces. That's the extent of the chemistry I was going to share with you today. So,
thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. All right. So, is this really something new? And I would say it's not completely. Back in 1912, U.S. patent came out that showed the use of sulfite liquors, which is the raw material that's used to make Dust-X, is patented for dust control. All right, now that's not full depth reclamation, or that's not stabilization. But what happened was they started using this product for dust control and found out later that the road structures were improved. Right, so then they started looking into this a little further, and in 1922, another patent came out, and this does specifically relate to full depth reclamation. It's used of sulfite liquors, which is the raw material we use for Dust-X, for a binding agent for asphaltic materials mixed in with road base, full depth reclamation. So that brings me, so then the question is, well, how come we're not using this more now, right? My working theory is that we as a company are the major producers of this material. And we looked at a lot of other applications to sell our product to that we perceived as higher value. That changed the availability of this material. So I think it's an availability thing that affected the use of our material here in this particular application. And then over time, things like bitumen or asphalt emulsion or cement end up filling the void, and that became the standard for this process. So now that jumping back to one of my first slides that said, here's all this new volume we have coming in. We have this Florida plant that produces 150,000 metric tons dry solids of material. That changes the game, I believe, and this is why we're here today to talk about it a little bit more. All right, and that's also been used readily for soil stabilization in Norway. And this kind of led us to get this special provision from MnDOT, is this data and this study done by the Norwegian Road Authority, where they stabilized 5 roads with Dust-X in 2002 and 2006, and then went back in 2017 and reevaluated those roads to determine how they're holding up.
Can I
Yep.
a question? So when you say soil stabilization,
Yes.
the picture kind of looks like base. Are we talking about base material, rocky material, or actually the subgrade, the soil material?
We're talking the base material.
Base material. Okay.
Yep.
So, okay.
Now, granted,
As opposed
so,
to- yeah, full
well,
depth.
yeah.
Okay.
It's not full depth reclamation. This is just to say it stabilizes road base.
Yep. Okay.
Now, part 3 of this slide is that those roads that were studied here were produced with what they considered subpar materials. They would not build these roads with the current road base there and expect the road to last very long. So they knew they had to add something, and they went with Dust-X to give it a shot and see how it performed. If these roads were built without Dust-X, they would fall well under the standard that they outline in their N200 standard in Norway. So the results of that is, if you look on the far right side, is they measured one of the measures they used to evaluate this was the lifespan of the road, and they found that, and they evaluated this by rut depth development. So they measured the rut depths over time and projected that out and to determine what the lifespan of these roads were. Looking at these results, essentially, the road life is improved by 20 to 30% based on these numbers against the standard. But we weren't really necessarily comparing a standard, because the standard would be a road built on materials that were specified by N200 standard. These materials that were used in these roads were subpar. They were non-standard products, road materials. And our product, Dust-X, still improved that road well enough that it exceeded the standard by 20 to 30%. If we compared it to roads built without Dust-X with those same materials, you'd probably see even greater extension of road life. So that's something we still have to define better, but it did give a good indication that we're on the right side of this thing.
Steve, could I just jump in a second?
Sure.
Those roads are up in the middle of the Norway, and the real thing with these roads, they were never built. They just became. All these roads, they start in the original. They started as a track for a horse, and then came a boogie wagon, and soon they come a T-Ford, and then it became an asphalt road eventually. So these roads are of very poor condition, a lot of clay soil, and they're very affected of frost heaves, and it's normally these roads should have been digged away and just forgotten. That's how bad it was. Okay, Steve.
Yep, good point. Thanks. All right. Then with my limited knowledge, again, I'm a chemist trying to speak in engineer terms, but Terry was able to give me a couple values to evaluate against. So he had said that if you did a million process, this is the cost per square yard, asphalt per inch, and so on. So if you did a full depth reclamation and did nothing else but milled it and put asphalt on top of it, it would cost about $15.50 for my math. If you looked at a scenario number 2 where you add Dust-X and you account for the cost of the product, and you say, well, it's going to increase the lifespan by 25%. We're looking at a cost savings of about 90 cents per square yard. But again, that 25% life expectancy could be far better because, again, we weren't comparing it against the true control. So we were comparing against the standard in that prior test.
Just one other point, and I think I kind of made the point 10 minutes ago, is this only looks at the first bit of bituminous you put on it. Right, so I fixed what's underneath the bituminous, right? So, but the second time I put bituminous on it, if your product lasts that long, which I'm assuming hopefully it lasts years, then that bituminous or whatever surface would also have a lengthening service life. So
beyond that, because you're stacking it back up on good stuff.
What's under the bituminous? We're thinking 50, 100, 200 years. Except in an urban environment where you have to take out some grade to fix pipes and stuff every 75 years, 50, 75 year train. So start thinking of your product, hopefully, as a real long-term, something that we put overlay after overlay after overlay.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. And that's what we're trying to think, hey, how do we demonstrate that, right? Is this interesting enough to take it to the next step where we can start putting this stuff down on some various roads to evaluate it? But again, I don't know if that's a good comparison per se. I mean, I'm pretty conservative with the cost of our product in this scenario. But it does say that we are pointing in the right direction, at least. We're on the cost saving side. And then on top of that, you have a sustainable, environmentally friendly product, and you're not hurting the environment per se. Yes, sir.
I'm trying to understand the second thing. So you're saying that you're taking 6 inches of the subgrade and then put a 4 inch of asphalt on top of that. Is that correct?
That's correct. In that scenario, that's what I'm suggesting. Yep. And then I'm taking the increased life expectancy and saying, well, if we get that much more life out of the product or out of the road, so now those costs, that's a cost savings, and I add that back to this equation. Does that make sense? Okay. And then in a second scenario, what if we didn't look at increasing the life expectancy of the road, but rather said, let's just get the cost savings today and reduce the amount of asphalt we put on the road surface because we have a better road structure, so maybe we can get away with less asphalt. And if you did that calculation, it ends up being a 50 cent per square yard cost savings. Again, maybe not a huge savings, but we're on but we still have to define this thing. And I think with these tentative or initial calculations, we're still on the right side of the equation at least. And you still get the benefits of the sustainability and environmentally friendly aspects of the product. And then one other scenario I put together was between 3 and 4. And here's the same scenario I described earlier, but then let's compare it to cement or oil stabilized full depth reclamation type road. And here we see that the cost savings would be $3 per square yard over cement stabilized road base. And again, taking out 1 inch of asphalt on top of that. Again, I don't know how these products will compare in the field exactly, but again, it's indication that there is some potential here. Okay, Lloyd, this is your turn. So now Lloyd's going to talk about how he applies it and uses it in Norway.
Okay.
And Lloyd, tell me when you need me to switch slides, please.
Yes, I will. You see the roads that we have here in Norway? I guess you have some similar roads over there. And normally we go like 25 centimeters deep, and we crush stones and mountain and asphalt and mix it in a total homogenized material. And you go for mainly the roads we have in Norway is like asphalt based, but now we are also going to attack gravel roads as well for the government. And we work like almost all the roads are only for the government, municipalities and counties and state. So next picture, Steve. Here you see the Rocky Mountains up in Norway. We have a lot of the roads that are very little material above the solid mountains. So when we come with our milling equipment and we hit solid mountain all the time, that's why it's so hard to handle Norway. So next picture. That's our machinery that we build ourselves. It's a crusher miller. And by so we have material that comes out is like between the 40 to 60 millimeters, and we have a very homogenized material, and it's easy to stabilize with it. And the FDR is a very good combination with the Dustex. We use only Dustex in Norway. We have competitors we can handle like bitumen, but cement is never used in Norway, neither clay, because it's too stiff. And bitumen has a problem also in Norway because of the frost heaves. It gets too stiff and it cracks. And when it cracks, it sucks up water and salt. And for every winter, the cracks are getting bigger and bigger. And then eventually, the asphalt layers in the crack itself. Next. Here you see what we have over here. It's not exactly Sahara. So it's like it's granite. That's the regular thing. And granite and river stones, very hard material. And when they come to the real hard parts, we are the only one who can handle it. So we're thinking if we can handle Norway, we can handle the rest. So as in our eyes, Norway is our lab, but the market is out there. So we crushed, you see the material in the bottom under the crusher, then we lift it up, big rocks, and behind it you have the gravel with 40 millimeters maximum, and then you have a very good base to stabilize. And everybody they're talking about bearing capacity. Are we trying to get away from bearing capacity? And we're talking about the capacity to float. If you have soil and you have clay underneath, whatever you do, you are coming and struggling to the point that you will end up with how is the bearing capacity. That's why we'll have do you want to have a ferry or you want to have a bridge? A bridge is very expensive. You want to dig out all the material. Again, it's very expensive. But a ferry, it's much easier and more financially efficient to handle. With a ferry, they can float, and the ferry doesn't care if it's 10 meters deep or it's 100 meters deep. So when you have this bad quality under the asphalt layer.
So Lloyd, what you're saying is that it's the way Dustex works is more of a flexible, floating type stability road base versus a very stiff, hard road base that like bitumen would produce, and that has more propensity, especially in like cold climates, to crack and break versus the Dustex, which is far more flexible and can absorb those type forces. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
It's like if you're going to produce a plate of plywood, you have chopped wood and you have the glue. And a plate, that's flexible. You can build with it. If you have a swamp and you put a plate out there, you can stand on it. Remove the plate, you go under. That's what we do also in the road. We build a float so we can carry, and if when Mother Nature still want to dance, and if the plate that the ferry that we create, if that can float with the frost heaves, and then if then also the asphalt layer can only be a layer on top. The asphalt is not supposed to be any kind of carrying anything. But if the asphalt can be like a top layer that is laying on the ferry, so the ferry will take care of the hits and the carry, and then the asphalt is supposed to do what it's supposed to do. It's a top layer. Next.
Question. So maybe it shows it here. Are you milling from edge to edge, from ditch to ditch, all the way across?
Yes. That's what we do. All the way. So here again, you see up in the mountain areas, and it's very hard stones and rocks and solid mountain. And then when you can have like this, we produce like 4,000 to 5,000 square meters a day per crusher. So then we have a good capacity to handle these roads, and we deliver quality all the time. And you have to produce a material. If we can transform the material, then you don't have to transport the material. Let the material stay, and the problems go away. So keep the material where it's supposed to be. And all these rocks and stones, normally it's a problem. If you crush the stones and rocks, then they have potential, and that's our product. Next picture. Here you see what we talked about, like you mentioned, these roads. You see behind the crusher, it's only soil. You could plant potatoes into it. In the middle of the road, there was a horse track. And then finally there came a boogie wagon, and a few years later there came the T-Ford. Still, it's only 50% of the road that have like gravel. The rest is flat out.
Lost him?
Oh, yeah.
Not a phone, it's through the computer, right?
Yeah, it is.
Through a Skype link or whatever. You type them and tell them that you lost them. Oh, but he won't see it if you want. Well,
I just text him. We'll see.
yeah, text him. That's good. So when he talks about soil problems, maybe you don't know this, but this is actual soil again, or is it?
This is what the road. This is what the road was built on. So he's saying that those roads, those old roads, were just evolved over time,
Sure,
and they were
yeah.
never built properly in the first place. So now they go back and they have to build these roads, and he goes and mills it. The base is really just dirt and parts of that section, and that's what
Yeah, we see a lot of contaminated base in our, right, so the base, you're supposed to be,
Doesn't seem to be basis. It's same as a compacted substrate.
sun-grade.
Yeah. We have CBR or R values that we can compare to other.
Or resilient modulus or something,
Um,
some kind of soil strength.
Yeah, we
before-
did some tests on confined strength with using some fold up reclamation material.
Yeah.
And what it showed is that the strength development over 20. So this product takes a little longer to cure.
Yep.
Between 14 and 21 days. We're talking 300 psi strength development over that time frame. and then it kind of starts plateauing off. So you might get a little bit marginal gain after that, and when we're talking strictly PSI of the road.
You use the same dosage for all materials, or is it specific to a project? You have mixed design to use to it?
Right now, what we do is we recommend the same dosage. So for the US, we're saying 1.2 gallons per square yard per 6 inches of depth. And it's going to be a little bit different than the dosage rates they use in Norway, because the concentration of our product's higher, so you can use a little bit less, obviously. So Lloyd, you still there?
Now finally we're back. We lost you guys. Now I'm back.
Okay.
We lost you twice. Lost and found. Okay, next picture.
And Lloyd, we have roughly 15 minutes.
Yep.
Okay.
And here, when we have a lot of asphalt, we have the asphalt miller that comes ahead, and you see with the next picture. Then we have the crusher comes behind, and then all the asphalt is crushed and milled, and we have a good material base for stabilization, and then also the traffic can just keep on going. You don't have to close the road. Next. Here we can have in this road we have 3 equipages, so we can have 3 crushers going on, but then we have to close the entire road. The government really needed a fast solution on this particular road, so we did. So we have 6 crushers of our own. So we did the full width of the road all in once. Next. Here you see we have the stabilization. You have the tank truck on the picture on the left. We have the track with a mixer with a tube between, and it's directly pumped from the tank truck into the mixer, and the compactor is behind. But on the right side, the dust is poured out on top of the road, and the mixer coming behind after and mixing it directly in.
I think the preferred method would be the first one, correct?
Yes, very much. It is. And here you see we had talked about like the sustainability and the capability of bearing. This picture is taken like 2 weeks after the stabilization, and already you see how hard it gets. The excavator hardly came through it. So, and it's a very good base with the dust, but it must be a homogenized with controlled material in size. Next picture. Here you see from the side, they dug up the road to check out. On the picture on the right, you can see the wall, the top layer, and the dust is bound together, and you have the clay and soil underneath, the red and gray part. But the dark part is in the top layer of the 25 centimeters. So it's standing by itself. Next picture. And we have the compacting equipment from Caterpillar, and we use the technology from Trimble SciTech from the US, where we document all our compacting work. So we can have a satellite, and we can it's like an MR, so we can check out the level and the quality of the compacting work. So if you can document it, you can choose between documentation or discussion. If this is done, you don't have any discussion. You have a memory stick from the Caterpillar machine, and then you can see the entire road on that driver, so you can see what we have done. Next. And then we use like tractor graders in the first day, so the the graders, they come on day 2 to shape the road. So, and in Norway we have the problem, we have more graders than we have drivers right now. It's hard to find good grader drivers, so we take care of this part ourselves. And then on day 2 they come with a big grader from Caterpillar and Volvo, for example, and they handle and shape the last few centimeters of the road. Finished. Next. And we started like 2 years ago with the edge stabilization. We have compact equipment, so we compact the edge of the road and down to the bottom of the ditch. By so, you are keeping the shoulders together and it won't pour out. We had like in 2 years ago, we had the great flood in the south of the country, and that was like 2 weeks after stabilization. And since we had stabilized the edges, nothing got damaged during the flood. So it's a very cheap way to keep the road together with a lot of rain pouring down. Next. Here's the road ready for asphalt. So that's how it looks. So it's like, so yeah, last picture. That's how you can have like, if you want to have like crushed asphalt on top, and we can also bring in like crushed concrete and crushed asphalt and mix in with the road, and you can get away all the piles of crushed material that's laying around, bring it into the road, and you can have a controlled amount of material they can add into it, and that works very perfect with the dust sticks.
I think it's part of our documentation, so what's the minimum? And of course, it probably depends upon how much rain to between when you apply the product and when you put down the asphalt, I suppose. Is that correct, Steve?
Say that again. It's
okay. So
how long you want it open?
2 to 6 weeks, right? Between.
We put 2 weeks in our.
2 weeks.
In our
2 week minimum.
Yep.
Got it. So that'll be something to think about. I mean, you don't want this project let for completion where you don't figure this timeline in. So.
Yeah, one of the things we would like to explore is, okay, so this stuff cures over, let's say, 21 days.
Sure.
What happens if you get some, after a week, you get that base built up enough to go in and asphalt it? What happens over time underneath the asphalt layer?
Stronger, but we just have to meet some minimum strength so we can pave it. So.
Yep. Yeah. And I'm not denying this is not a work in progress for the U.S. I mean, we have a lot of things we got to sort out.
We seem to have to go. I mean, rural project that's led may have some time, right? If it's just kind of a reclamation of more like the project led in August or September, you wouldn't want to use this product, right? Because we don't like paving in October, November.
Yeah.
So in Norway, what's the criteria whether to determine if it's 2 or 6 weeks? Do you have some kind of test that you do during construction to say it's ready to go or not?
Last year we had a 250,000 square meters, and during that last year, and we had 1 million liters of dust sticks poured out, and we had a very hot and dry summer last year. And we were down to like 4 days from ready with dust sticks until the asphalt came. So if it's a very dry and hot summer, it's a very short period from we are done to the asphalt can come on. But in Norway, normally we have a very much more rainy weathers, and then you need a couple of weeks just to like make it do its work.
I imagine Norway might be a little bit more cloudy than Minnesota. soda or?
Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes.
So maybe we should think about some kind of criteria, and what would that criteria be? Like, I don't know, Bruce or, it was you, John. Yeah, DCP or LWD, some kind of, it would be nice to have some kind of test. So we'd say, yep, we're ready to go, right? So we have lightweight deflectometers, we have multi-weight deflectometers, which we don't some kind of deflectometer number. Yep, I don't know, I know Germany is really big on lightweight deflectometer. Correct.
I guess you have hot summers over there.
Well, I want to be able to test it as an agency and
Yeah.
say, hey,
It's ready to go.
let's go, let's go.
It hit the number, let's go, right?
Exactly.
But again, in Norway, it's pretty wet and cool.
Well, I understand
So
that, but I
it'll
need
change
something more than a
quite a
time
bit.
frame. I need some kind of
Same
test
amount.
to say, hey, we can go.
Modulus.
Yeah, resilient modulus with a lightweight deflectometer, DCP possibly, something.
Moisture count.
Our friend online, James Bittman, said there's gotta be some sort of moisture content,
Right, component to that.
some way to measure that.
Right. So moisture content, all these kind of things to say, hey, let's go. I still would want to have, if I was a district and was using the product, though, I would still want to have the flexibility, right? So I probably wouldn't use your product for a job that, an end date October 15th. I'd want an end date of September 5th, September 1st to give me the flexibility, go, okay, we got to extend this thing out a little bit. We still have a month to have it cure out. In case we do have a summer like we've had this year, which has been very rainy.
So it said the grader gets on like day 2. Is there a limit, by day 4, depending on weather conditions where the blade can't work it anymore?
Lloyd?
Hello, here is a roundup of road report.
Say that again.
Is there a limit to when the grader can go back onto that road once you've milled it and rolled it? So you said 2 days in your when you just spoke in the presentation, but they're wondering after 4 days, is it too long, or how long can you wait before you grade it?
Normally it should be like the day after. So it's like, because it's hardening quite fast, so the grader should be on this place the day after the mixing in with the Dust-X. And the longest we've been working is the first week of December. That's what we normally mostly have been working for, all through November and the first week of December.
Okay, and then during that curing process, however many days it is, do you allow traffic to be on it?
All the time. The traffic is going all the time. We don't stop the traffic at all. That's why you saw in the picture, while we were working and the mixing of everything is in it, you put on the traffic all the time, no stop of traffic at all. So we just help the traffic going past. When the grader comes the day after, just help the traffic drive on and no stop of the traffic. Do you hear me, guys?
Yep. Any other questions related to the application process of it?
One
For
simple
Lloyd?
question. If you have like a very hot day like we had this weekend, where we are mixing it, you have to adjust the moisture or something, like on CIR day, if you have temperatures above 100 C, you have to adjust the moisture. Is that something, you need to do something with this?
I would imagine so. We specify that collectively with our product in it, we should reach optimal moisture content. But if there's a factor that you guys normally use for hot days, then we probably have to incorporate that same thing into our product specs.
And there's one last thing before you go on. In Norway, we use liquid for the Dust-X. What we want to do from next year is we're going to go over to powder. So normally you cannot bring in dry weather, but you can bring in dry material. So if we can add the dust sticks in a powder form, and then you bring water in the amount that's only needed, then you have much more control, and you have shrinking down very much the time from the mixing in with the dust sticks until the asphalt should come along.
How do you meet them? How do you meet up the discussion? So,
That's a concept. So that's a concept Lloyd has, because he's, like he said earlier, he wants to start developing a business here in the U.S. And Lloyd, I think you've been in contact with some equipment people on how to dose that correctly as a powder.
Yes, it's ready to go.
Once it's cured, does it stay cured even if it gets wet again?
Lloyd?
Stay cured if it's going like.
Does it stay strong if it cures initially and then it gets wet after that? Does it lose a lot of its strength?
No. That's the good thing with the dust sticks. Every winter and every spring, and it's flexible. So during the winter, it takes in a certain amount of like liquid, water, or whatever, and it's get back to its shape again and harden. So it's like that's why you can have it flexible. So it's an organic material, and that's why it's so flexible. So it can go with the nature's seasons during the year, and it's really the potential to get back to new life every year. So that's why it lasts so long. And we have terrible roads over here, and the government, they scratch their head. They don't understand how it can survive, but it's because it's like the way it's built.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to assemble. I think it'd be Uber. We probably have a lot of questions. We're almost at the end here, but I want to get Ruin Kalim's contact information.
Yep, that's coming up.
You can send me his or her. Yep. Oh, you got that on the thing, and you got the email.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be good to have. If we want all the questions go through me, right? If we have some, because I got a lot more.
Yeah.
And then I'll send them all to Ruin, and then I can share with everybody in the group. Well, everybody in this room that I can see, and then through NRA too, if that would make sense.
Yeah, I think that makes great sense because obviously he's the one like you using this material,
Yep.
and he likes it.
He's my age too, so that's
and just as good looking.
Got more hair.
Yeah, some of his credentials though, he's like I said earlier, manager of the road department.
Yep.
And been involved for 15 years in asphalt engineering, and his background is engineer in geology and geophysics. So, he can talk your language.
Which is scary.
I guess, Terry, one other question I've been getting a couple texts. The whole idea of it being so strong, not being like cement, causing a lot of cracking. There's that concern about being too strong.
I don't know how it works, right?
The
So
flexibility with that, something I guess we'll have to get in, but I've been getting a few texts saying, if it's real strong, it's going to cause a lot of cracking. So that's a concern we'll have to look over.
it sounds like it's that flexibility component. I don't know if it's necessarily strong, or does it make a a strong, flexible mat? So it's strong because it distributes the load over a larger area. You know what I mean?
Yep, that's how I take it when Lloyd describes that.
Right.
Being the user and the contractor for it,
Yep.
he's describing that ferry or that float idea versus
Yep.
the stiff bridge.
So if it's strong because it's got a lot of people carrying this heavy load as opposed to just one strong guy.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know if it's a bad analogy, but you know what I mean.
That's why if you create a float like out of timber, you have it on a river. If you have ropes to bind the timber together,
Yep.
then it flexes. But if you have like screws or nails, it breaks. and that's what happens in the harsh winters. And the harder material, the harder it breaks, and that's why you have the flexibility, but you have also the strength in the lignin. It's like the lignin, that is the material in the lumber that makes it stand. And that kind of flexibility, you get back on the road again.
Okay, we're getting close to the end. I have a summary slide here, but I think the idea, Terry, to collect some of these questions, and I openly admit I'm not an
And not
engineer.
only people in this room, but,
Online.
we have some state people or, even within our state or out state people, if they want to send their questions to me, then I'll be able to share all those questions to Mr. Killen. And I'll share the answers to everybody who, gives me an email. I'll assemble it, so if that sounds good.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. And then is there other things we should be thinking about doing? I mean, we'll answer those questions first, I guess, but the goal here is to, okay, what do we do next? Is there enough of a case to be made here to look into some test strips somewhere? Or, is there some municipalities that are more prone to looking at this, or counties that are more prone to look at something like this for a small stretch of road versus others? And how do we organize something like that so we get this data and we get this understanding of the product more in-house?
Talk more.
Okay.
I'll talk to you offline.
Do we have baseline test strips?
We do have a base one test strip, right, along with other products. It's about 10 years old. Also, a lot of counties and municipalities, mostly counties, that have used base one, the alternative product. Beyond, it's not the Gillette or company. So you might be more likely to.
Good. All right, just to a quick summarize again, we are the world's most advanced biorefinery. Sustainable, environmentally friendly product. Goes back to the same points I was trying to reiterate in the beginning. Densifies and binds that road base to create that structure. And as Lloyd says, that floating structure that better distributes the weight. It's been around in some form for quite some time, and it's proven by extensive use in Norway. I've mentioned that study. That's also included that info packet, the Norwegian Road Authority study. That's in that information packet. But beyond that study, they're still using this stuff across Norway. It's not just in that district where Runa is working. It's being used extensively. It's cost effective, we think, and it's easy to use per the description of what Crusher outlined. And then Runa endorses this product, and you're welcome to ask those questions of them. So that is what we have. So sorry for the extension of time there, but appreciate your attention, and thank you everyone online as well.
Thank you.
Okay.